Are Arsenal going to be suffering from a Bayern Munich hangover? 7 games to go. Are we going to see a repeat of last season where we collapsed in the last 7 games? Or can we finally get over the line and it starts this weekend against Aston Villa? Welcome to the channel. It's Jay from Jay Ferguson TV. Hit the subscribe button and hit that like button. So, big weekend, and instantly it got me thinking about last season. And it's ironic that it's in and around the same sort of time where we sort of just bowled it last year. Exactly on match day 31 is where it all started to go downhill. Now, if you look at our position where we was at match day 31, right? You know, we've got Man City, game in hand, breathing down our neck. But then what happened is we got that draw at West Ham, and I've got it here. So that draw against West Ham on the 16th of April, that's where things all started to go wrong. And it's on the match day 31. And it's ironic that we've just come off the back of a 2-2 draw against Bayern Munich. And a lot of people feel like it was a loss. A lot of people feel like potentially we should have won that game. They came away from that game disappointed, especially based on Bayern's form going into that game and obviously our form going into that game. Home advantage, they didn't have no fans in the stadium. So a lot of people came away from that game feeling like, we let one slip there. We probably should have got, the win on the night. And it was a 2-2 game. Now, the pressures are a little bit different from last year to this year. Last year, the pressure was we've been on a great run. We've been leading the Premier League for the majority of the season. No one expected anything from us. But now we're into the last sort of 7 games of the season and we're still there. That's when the pressure changed. And it started from that West Ham game because we went West Ham 2-2. We then followed that up with a 3-3 home draw against Southampton. We then followed that up with a 4-1 defeat to Man City. Right? And pretty much in those range of 3 games, only collecting 2 points out of a possible 9. That's more or less where the Premier League was lost. So, we're in the same position with different pressures this year. Why? Because again, we're top of the league, right? Difference this time, we have Liverpool and Man City right behind us. But the pressures are slightly different because you now have to balance Aston Villa game sandwiched in between 2 Bayern Munich games. Now, that game during the week against Bayern, 100%, that is going to take it out of the players. You're playing at a higher level. Your mind has to operate at a higher level. You've got to deal with the pressures. You've got to deal with the better quality. And that's why we saw mistakes. Now, that Arsenal defensive display against Bayern Munich, it wasn't so much that Bayern Munich ripped us to shreds. We gifted more or less them 2 goals to Bayern Munich due to poor defensive play. And those decisions what were made in that game is solely down to pressure. That defensive display against Bayern Munich midweek looked like Arsenal of old. Now everyone has been talking. We've got the 2 best centre back pairings in the Premier League, maybe even world football. When we've got the best defensive record in the Premier League, which is a notoriously tough league. But we didn't see none of that against Bayern Munich. What is the difference? The level, the expectation, the pressure. That was the difference. And certain players failed under the bright lights. And I always remember Floyd Mayweather always used to say, people talk about sparring and say they got the better of me and so forth. But when you're underneath those bright lights in Vegas, I always win. And that's a true quote. When the pressure's on and the lights are at its brightest, who's going to stand up and be counted for? So it's super interesting to me that we're 7 games this season from potentially winning the league again. And we've just come off a 2-2 draw again. But we've got different pressures this time. So how on earth are the players going to respond? And the game against Aston Villa is 100%. Every game in the league is a tough game. And there's a lot of, backstory to that, Emery and so forth. And Aston Villa always sort of pose us a difficult game. But for me, I'm looking at this game as the first real test of Arsenal's resolve this season. I know we had a rocky start to the beginning of the season. We had a good few draws, then we went Dubai, then we've been on a sensational run since. So we responded to the adversity. But adversity is not pressure for the most part, right? It's a tricky moment. Pressure is relentless now. Every single game there's pressure because we're only leading the league table by goal difference. The pressure now comes because there's more expectation based on what we did last year, number one. Number two, you've got to balance Champions League. Our manager's never had to do this before. He's never been a manager in the Champions League. And I think his setup was a bit off in that Champions League. Maybe that's his inexperience. So there's many different factors was playing into this pressure pot what Arsenal are about to enter. And it starts from this weekend against Aston Villa. This is the real test of resolve. The last 7 games to get your hands on that Premier League title in over 2 decades. Can they do it? Moving on, looking at the game, I think Mikel Arteta definitely needs to make some changes, freshen up the team. Some of the things that certain decisions he made in that game against Bayern, and I think he rectified it. That's why he made halftime substitutions, and he never does that. We all know Arteta only makes substitutions after 60, 65 minutes. So for him to go in at halftime and make a sub lets you know that, I probably got this one wrong. And I still wasn't even wild on Zinchenko coming in. I'm not quite sure why he hasn't still not opted back to go with Tomiyasu. Like, no one could tell me that Kivior offers more than Tomiyasu. And Kivior, that's where you got dragged. Not good enough, ultimately. So I'm wanting to see Tomiyasu, and I've been calling for it for like probably the last 2-3 games. I want to see Tomiyasu come in at left back. I want to see Thomas Partey in that middle instead of Jorginho. And that's only why I want to see it. And I wouldn't even be adverse to him going with Jesus instead of Havertz in this game also, to be honest with you. I think that it's nothing about looking at that Bayern game. I just think, European football to Premier League football is 2 different setups that you need to go for. And I think Arteta is discovering that, and he's trying to find his best European strategy, his best team, his best setup for European football. I think he's pretty much confident in what he needs and what he expects for the Premier League. So for me, Jorginho, I don't want to see him going back-to-back games at his age. We need to get Thomas Partey match fit. Yeah, he came on against Bayern, looked a bit shaky in the first couple of minutes, but it's going to come with repetition and game time. So we 100% need to start seeing Thomas Partey get some game time, especially with 7 games remaining in the season. And like I said, I wouldn't be adverse to seeing Gabriel Jesus starting instead of Havertz. Now, this is nothing to do with Havertz's form or whatever. It's just freshening up the team, getting a different look. And I think we need that, especially coming off the back of that 2-2 draw against Bayern Munich. But I'm going to go in with a match prediction for this game. I'm going to go 3-1 to the Gunners. For some reason, I don't think this one's going to be a clean sheet. So I'm going to go 3-1 to the Arsenal. Let me know your predictions. Let me know your thoughts, your starting lineup in the comment section below. And hit that subscribe button and hit that like button on your way out. And I'll see you all again soon. Peace.